Hello there everyone, it's your boy b.r.p.d, back with another kicking graphic novel review. Today we are looking at the Hellboy Omnibus Volume 1 Seed of Destruction. Pretty cool. Let me read you the back of the book real quick. For the first time, Hellboy's complete story is presented in chronological order for the ultimate reading experience. My partner is a big Hellboy guy, and he says that that can be an issue with Hellboy stuff, is that it's out of order. With over 300 pages written and drawn by Mike Mignola, of course. This first volume jumps from Hellboy's mysterious World War II origin to his 1994 confrontation with the man who summoned him to Earth, avoiding his supposed fate as the herald of the end of the world. Hellboy battles monsters alongside Abe Sapien, Liz Sherman, and Roger the Homunculus as agents of the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense. The 4-volume Omnibus series, along with the 2 volumes of the complete short stories, collect all of Mignola's award-winning Hellboy stories in chronological order for a definitive reading experience, reprinting Seed of Destruction, Wake the Devil, and the stories Wolves of St. August, The Chained Coffin, and Almost Colossus from The Chained Coffin. And, you know, it's distributed by Dark Horse, but I think it is independently owned by Mignola. Of course, it's by Mike Mignola and John Byrne. I think that's how you pronounce it. But it's a really good book. Mignola's art is incredibly recognizable, and instantly so. His use of shadows is just incredible. Like, his artwork would probably save a lot of money if he just did it on black paper. I know it's probably a lot digital nowadays, but this was probably all done on paper. Who knows? But, you know, you see Rasputin, the evil, quote-unquote, immortal monk summoning Hellboy, and I like in this world how they're not really secret. Like, there are normal people that see Hellboy and don't seem that affected by him, like they know who he works for. I kind of like that, because maybe it is secret and I just didn't pick up on that, I don't know. But in so many paranormal investigation shows, the organization, whether it be a private one or a public one, they're always like so secretive. But I think it's actually more interesting that it isn't. And also, the show is very supernatural, but it's also very pulpy. Like, it clearly takes a lot from like pulp sci-fi and vigilante stuff. I really like it. God, I love this book. It's got Eldritch Abominations. It's got found family stuff, and you know I'm a big found family guy, huh? Yeah, it's got frog monsters. Who doesn't love a good frog monster? We all do. And, you know, it's got Nazis. I read that Mignola said Nazis had to be some of the villains, because in a lot of pulp fiction, not to be confused with Pulp Fiction, Nazis are typically the villains, because when a lot of that pulp stuff came out, it was like during World War II, you know? Like during the Great Depression and World War II and stuff. That's why it's called pulp, because it was printed on like this really cheap pulpy paper. And they were just kind of exploitative stories. And it was really easy to get people to buy them if you put like a lot of real world villains in them. Kind of get that propaganda coin. But, you know, Liz is a pyrokinetic. Abe Sapien is kind of a creature of the Black Lagoon type intellectual guy, which is pretty cool. Abe Sapien might actually be my favorite out of all of them. I'm a big Abe Sapien fan. I stan the Sapien. I simp for the chimp. Or for the Sapien, I suppose. But yeah, I don't really want to spoil the story about the frog people from the Eldritch God or anything. But it does tie in to Rasputin's overall goal. Hellboy does have a pretty epic battle with Rasputin and Abe Sapiens there and whatnot. A lot is going on. It will make you feel. It really will. The Nazis do come back to life eventually, and there's this big Eldritch Abomination that Rasputin is trying to bring about into the world, which I think will be pretty interesting to a lot of people. And then there were like in the extra dimensional plane, there were like these big sci-fi techie looking alien dudes who kind of even look a little like Abe Sapien, to be honest. And they were like living in the dimension with the creature that's trapped in it, and they were like, oh, someone's trying to summon that thing. What are they, idiots? And they just kind of were out of nowhere, and very interesting. Such a cool little contrast they gave and hinted at some much bigger lore. It was really cool. Mignol's just a genius. And then the Nazis that helped bring Hellboy to Earth are kind of, I don't want to say resurrected because it implies they were dead, but they were kept in, suspended animation. Then there's like a short little werewolf story. It's pretty cool because it's also got ghosts, and it's like got a bunch of traditional werewolf stuff, but then there's a bunch of stuff in it that's not traditionally werewolf. And it's actually very interesting. Like, if you're someone that's absorbed a lot of werewolf fiction, there's still something in it for you because it's not generic werewolf, which I think is very good because he could have easily, it's a very short story. It's not really an arc. It's more of a between arcs kind of story, you know? And they could have easily just done a basic werewolf thing, but they didn't. They didn't, and it's really impressive. It makes you think. It's very cool. And I like the clash because there's a lot of like Christian imagery throughout Hellboy, but especially in this story with the werewolf. And it's a magnificent contrast to a lot of the supernatural stuff going on. It really, really is. Anyway, continuing onward, we do kind of get to figure out more about Hellboy's mom and his big old devil dad, who's really cool. I gotta admit. But then there's a lot of stuff going on in the cold when the Nazis are resurrected and they're like killing people, and there's a lot more mysterious stuff going on. I know I'm not being super specific, but once again, I want you to read it. I want you to read all this stuff, you know? I truly do. And the Nazis do kind of screw up because they do have kind of some of their own beliefs and stuff, even though they're following Rasputin. But it seems like they might have been victorious if they would have just fully listened to Rasputin. I don't know. It seems like they might have been able to get away with all this vampire-y stuff that's happening, because it is kind of a Nazi vampire thing going on. With like these harpy creatures are there too, and snakes. Who doesn't love snakes? There's kind of Baba Yaga, who appears to be Rasputin's grandmother, which I think is very interesting. And I love how they draw Baba Yaga in this. Just huge, saggy naturals. Just big ol' granny milkers just hanging around. Because that's kind of like Baba Yaga's defining physical trait, is her huge sagging tits. I remember when I found out that that's what they call John Wick in the John Wick movies. I haven't seen them, but someone told me that, and I was like, huh? The old hag from Russian folklore? It's so funny to me. It really was. But also, you know, one of the Nazis thinks Rasputin is a fool. He doesn't care about all the supernatural stuff. He just kind of wants to live forever. He's basically a brain in a jar. I'm a big fan of brains in jars. Alright, my next volume of The Adventures of Dr. Scientist, if I can ever get it out, is going to have a brain in the jar in the first story. I love like living brains in jars. Don't ask me why. They're just super cool. But this one has a lot of like pulpy tech and stuff. And then eventually we get to kind of another story. We get to see Hellboy kind of learn some stuff about his dad. We get to see Rasputin talking to Baba Yaga. Like, just all the dialogue in this is so interesting to me. Like, there's not a second of it that doesn't really interest me. And then later, there's kind of like this homunculus. It's like a human-sized homunculus, very Frankenstein-esque. And he kind of steals the pyrokinetic ability of Liz and uses it to kind of like bring himself to life. And then he finds another homunculus, which is like a prototype to him, calls him brother. And our newer homunculus, he isn't a bad guy. He just wants to survive, you know? It's not even super apparent if he knew taking the fire would even hurt Liz. It's not even, like, it doesn't seem that way. But then the homunculi build this new giant body and they put both their bodies and consciousness in it, so it's just this huge colossus homunculus. I really I really loved it, to be completely honest. Y'all know I'm a big kaiju boy, so this kind of thing really interested me. But then, you know, the good homunculus kind of destroys it, and then he gives Liz his fire back because he's a good guy, Greg. And there's, you know, some stuff in the back, some behind the scenes that shows like some older designs for Hellboy and whatnot. And then you get a couple short stories, just Hellboy fighting Nazi brain in a jar and his gorilla servant. This gorilla servant, of course, reminds me of Gorilla from Doom Patrol. Oh, a lot of people probably also know him from Teen Titans. A lot of people my age probably know him more from Teen Titans, actually. But that was pretty cool. And then there's one of, like, Hellboy just fighting Anubis in, like, this town where everyone's dead. That one was short and fun. But Anubis wasn't a jackal. He was just, like, a normal dog you'd find on the street, which I thought was pretty cool. Maybe it wasn't Anubis himself. Maybe it was, like, a Nubite of sorts. But still, very cool. Lots more concept art in the back. Magnificent book. But yeah, if you want to read Hellboy, I say the Omnibus is a good way to go. I actually got it for a really good price. I'm very glad my partner talked me into it, because Hellboy is something I've always wanted to read, but it's always kind of been towards the bottom of my to-read list, and I'm glad I was convinced to start it sooner, because it's almost like it was written for me. You know, I love the timeless kind of feel of it. I really love pulpy stuff, you know? I really love all this pulpy dinosaur stories and like the Shadow and the Phantom and things like that. I really love all those old pulp heroes and etc. Flash Gordon, you know, this really feels like that kind of thing. Just a cool, pulpy, supernatural, timeless feeling monster book. And you guys know monsters are my main thing in life, you know? It's magnificent. The art is spectacular. Whenever anyone tells me that he's their favorite artist, even before I read this, I was like, oh yeah, his art's some of the best. Because I've read stories that he's done art for that aren't Hellboy. But truly magnificent book. The Hellboy Omnibus, Volume 1, Seed of Destruction. Definitely check it out. You can't go wrong with it. You simply can't. It's magnificent. It's in order. It's in full color. And it's just written and drawn incredibly well. So that's it. Thank you all very much for your support. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out all the cool links in the description below. Facebook, Twitter, etc. Now I'm going to get back to working on my eBay store, which you can check out as well. And I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.